Hi everyone, I'm David Aragona, and welcome to the August 2nd edition of Horses to Watch, where we carefully analyze trips from the past week, looking for horses that encountered adversity and could be worth betting back when they run back next time out. On this episode, I'm going to take a look at three replays from last weekend at Saratoga, all three of these being turf races, two from the Saturday card, one from Sunday. Let's begin with one of those Saturday replays from July 30th. This is race two. It's a maiden special weight event for the 2-year-olds going a mile and a 16th on the turf course. Let's break these runners from the gate, and I want to focus on the outside post position, the number 10, Son of a Birch. This is a horse who was coming off one sprint race in his debut at Belmont Park. This was his first time stretching out to a route, and you can just see he's a little bit too aggressive and not really ready to pace himself for this first time going two turns. A couple of runners to his inside speed off through the first furlong of this race, but you can see as he's trying to rate in behind those two in those orange silks, he's just a little bit too aggressive and headstrong. Javier Castellano, his rider, has a really tight hold on him, and the pace up front is pretty quick. It's not like he's being restrained behind a slow pace. They are motoring on the front end, 23.7 seconds. That's pretty quick for this group of 2-year-olds going the mile and the 16th distance. And you can see he's just not quite able to restrain this runner moving on to the backstretch, and he makes this early move to challenge those two leaders racing 3 wide down the backstretch, and he's going to continue 3 wide into the far turn. So not only is he moving into the fastest part of the race, he's covering ground while doing so. Just to kind of reel off some time formula pace ratings from this race to give some context to those fractions, the leaders went the opening quarter in a 151 Timeform US pace figure, which is just unreasonably fast for this mile and 16th distance. Son of a Birch, stalking just behind them, went to 141 for that opening quarter mile. So he had a right to get pretty tired at the end of this race. And you can see as they come to the top of the stretch, these leaders are dead tired. They're coming to a stop. Actually, some horses get caught in traffic in behind those horses as they're coming back to the field. You'll want to note the number 2 and the number 3 have to briefly pause in traffic, while the number 5, who eventually wins this race, stays out of all the trouble and just loops the field to win from last to first, going away at the end. But I do want to note that the number 10, Son of a Birch, that horse that I was noting was too close to the pace, he does finish well ahead of the other horses that were setting that pace on the front end. So I do want to give him credit for not completely falling apart in the stretch of this race. And I just think this is one where he was too headstrong, keyed up coming into this race, did not run the kind of race that you need to be successful going this 2-turn distance. I still think that he wants to go longer, just needs to kind of settle down in the early stages of his race to have some stamina left for the end. So this is one that I would want to give a shot to next time out when he makes his 3rd career start for trainer Tom Morley. Let's move on to another race from that Saturday, July 30th card, going a shorter distance. This is race 4. It's a maiden claiming 40,000, going 5.5 furlongs on the turf for fillies and mares. Let's break these runners from the gate, and I'm going to focus on the number 2, Lady Firefoot, who is a first-time starter in this race. And you can see that she breaks a little bit slowly, about a length behind the field. That is her in those light white and blue silks towards the back of the pack, the gray horse. And as they move down the backstretch, just take note of the fact that she is in some traffic trouble and getting a little bit rank, having to kind of steady briefly behind the number 3 in front of her. And as they move towards the far turn, there's going to be some traffic as these horses break for the turn, and she's going to steady a little bit because he's trying to move up inside of the number 3 right here, but a horse is going to back up right into his face in front of him right here. And you can see Javier Castellano really has to tap on the brakes here, kind of losing some momentum as he was trying to come through inside of those horses on the far turn. He's going to ultimately try to angle to the outside here, but you can see that this first-time starter is just a little bit green. She's going to hang on her left lead as they come into the stretch, not really moving out into the clear like her rider wants her to until they get to about the 8th pole. And she is eventually going to level off towards the end of this race and finish up decently, but just take note of her size as they come through the stretch. She is a pretty big filly. She's on her left lead there, but kind of awkwardly switches over to her right. Given the physical stature of her and the fact that she's by Temple City, I think that 5.5 furlongs may have been a little bit short for her on debut. She's probably one that's ultimately going to want to go a little bit longer in subsequent starts. So I'm interested to see where her trainer, Pat Reynolds, places her in her next race. But she is one that I think ran deceptively well first time out and can do better at this maiden claiming level in subsequent starts. Let's finish things off with one more race from this past week. This is the last race from Sunday, July 31st. It's a New York bred maiden claiming 40,000, going 5.5 furlongs on the turf. And this is a trip that I think caught a lot of people's attention because it was hard to miss. We're going to focus on the number 2 steerage. Let's break these runners from the gate, and you're going to see that number 2 horse breaks a little bit slowly, kind of like the replay we just saw, but the rider, Jalon Samuel, is intent on overcoming this slow start by trying to immediately hustle this horse up into position, and that just backfires. You can see he rides this horse directly into the back of another one, and he has to tap on the brakes basically a few strides out of the starting gate. That's not what you want to see happen. And it gets worse from here because now he's stuck in the pocket on the horse that's a little bit headstrong because he asked him for so much immediately coming out of the starting gate. He's getting a little bit shuffled back on the turn, just kind of in an awkward position, especially for a horse that had gone to the lead in his debut. So he's a horse that had only known how to run on the front end prior to this. Now he's trying to come from off the pace, but rather than stay inside and follow the horse that ultimately finished second, he's going to try to come off the inside here, angling out between horses. You can see there's nowhere to go. He can't quite bump himself out into the clear. So his rider is instead going to quickly angle back to the inside, having to alter course kind of awkwardly there and abruptly, and he's going to find himself back to the rail after futilely trying to get to the outside. It was just a situation where the rider made all the wrong moves at every point in this race, and the horse ultimately finished third in a spot that he arguably could have won with a better trip and a clean start, getting to that preferred position on the front end. You could tell from the opening jumps of this race, this is a horse that has a lot of speed because he almost made the front end, and he probably would have after that slow start if he hadn't been drawn towards the inside and gotten into that traffic trouble. So I think this is a horse that does have more ability than his results in the first couple of races would indicate, this just being the second start of his career. Do note he was claimed away from trainer Ray Handel out of this race, claimed by owner Louis Lazanaro and trainer Bruce Brown. So interested to see where he shows up in his next start and what kind of rider is on his back, because I think a rider upgrade is really going to benefit steerage when he makes his next start. So those are all the horses to watch for this past week. If you want to follow these horses moving forward, you can add them to your horse watch on DRF.com and get email notifications when these horses run back in the future. Thanks for tuning in this week, and make sure to catch future episodes of Horses to Watch during the Saratoga meet on upcoming Tuesdays.